Hey everyone, welcome to Roundtable Discussions. I'm your host, Katya Gopelian. Today we are going to be talking about Marvel versus DC. On the Marvel side, we have Angela and Colin, and on the DC side, we have Eric and Batman. So our first topic for today is TV shows and movies. Angela, what are your thoughts?
Well, with Marvel and TV shows and movies, I feel like, specifically with the new Marvel Cinematic Universe, that they've done the best job of crafting a universe that is consistent between both the television shows and the Netflix series and the movies. I can't speak too much for the past television shows up before then, but from what I've seen, the two TV shows and movies really do have a good tone together, whereas like with DC, I don't think they're as consistent.
All right, time's up. So, Batman, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that DC is much more of a pioneer in terms of TV and movies. With movies, everyone knows about Christopher Reeve and Superman during the 1970s. That was the first big budget superhero movie. And with TV shows, I would say that the first major cartoon is the one I'm featured in the early 90s, which is really amazing. It's more Tim Burton-esque. And directly inspired by that film.
Now the floor is open for a discussion. Go.
All right, so first, I think that you guys, DC, you're a lot better at the cartoons, but your live action work is not as good. While with Marvel, we're both good at the cartoons and the TV shows, where we're doing both serious stuff and more dramatic stuff.
I mean, with the whole thing with you saying that we're bad with cartoon, we're bad with live action, but not with cartoons. I mean, right now we've got The Flash, we've got Arrow, we've got Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl. All those things are still going continuously to this day, and people still watch them and keep up with them, and they're very popular. And anything you want to add, Batman?
Well, so while Marvel's been successful on the TV and movie front, the movie front is more recent, within the past few years. But DC has been consistently pretty good with films for the past, at least since, the 80s, 70s. So again, the trend started with Superman.
I disagree, though, because while you guys were good in the heyday with Superman and all that, as much as financially, your cinematic universe that you're riding off of ours is doing financially well. Critically, you guys are completely clueless to what you guys are doing. While your TV shows might be good,
Fair point.
I don't think it takes. I don't think it makes up for the very mediocre and disjointed cinematic universe that you're trying to catch up with us on.
All fair points, but if we're looking at the bigger picture here, that DC extended universe is a relatively recent development that only has 2 films.
3.
3? Is it 3?
Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad.
I didn't even. Okay, fair enough. So 3 films, but all of those films were made, and really, that whole universe is really just made up of 2 films: Suicide Squad and Batman vs Superman. Man of Steel was made before that concept.
You can say the same thing for Iron Man.
Time's up. Great discussion. All right, so our second topic is common critiques. Eric, the floor is yours.
I mean, the common critique is that the whole thing with the DC extended universe, I was about to say animated, is that it's way too dark and gritty. And while that can be a fair critique in some areas, the idea is they don't really want to rely too much on jokes and making things just really funny for everybody. And it's just, when people kind of go in with all these abilities or talents and then they're kind of taking things into their own hands, people are going to be a bit freaked out. So they want to demonstrate that people are going to take a bit of time to warm up to these people in their daily lives, because,
Time's up. Great. Colin, common critiques?
I think the 2 biggest common critiques that Marvel's getting right now is that it's too kiddish with all the jokes they're doing, and that we don't have good villains. I disagree with both of them. First, the whole kiddish thing, that is completely nonsense, because we go through a lot of dark topics, like having PTSD with Iron Man and Iron Man 3. We have many, as much as we're not being all dark and gritty, you guys do need to know that we are doing topics in a fun way. And for villains, we have a lot of villains. We had Loki, we have Thanos, we may not have the numbers of great villains, but we have the quality of great villains.
But the thing is, what has
All right.
Thanos done?
We have time for discussion now.
Okay, what has Thanos done?
Like-
Thanos done has, as much as he hasn't done anything yet, it's all about the build-up.
You mean
I
him
think-
sitting in a chair?
Yeah,
More
but
than
for the vast majority of Marvel's villains, the fact that they've only lasted one film sort of gives them a flavor of the week type deal. I
mean-
think
Whoa,
that's
whoa.
why.
Loki is kind of
Yeah,
the
well, right.
He's the villain right now.
But Loki, I'm talking about Marvel villains as a whole. Loki is an exception to the rule. How many other Marvel villains other than Loki have appeared for an extended period of time in the
Thanos.
Marvel cinematic
Thanos
universe?
is the other one.
Right,
yeah.
but Thanos has appeared in a handful of scenes. All told, Thanos' scenes aren't more than maybe 10 minutes.
It's
Do you get-
the thing. It's
my-
about
my-
the build-out.
You also have
Right,
the Winter
it is.
Soldier.
You're absolutely right. It is part of the build-up, but that doesn't change the fact that Marvel's villains, for the most part, are pretty weak.
Yeah.
But you also have to consider we have things like the Winter Soldier, which he started out as a villain, but the complexity of his origin story
Right,
has turned him
absolutely.
into one of the allies.
So
Right, right,
we're
right,
looking
right.
a lot more at that moral, like who's a villain, who's truly. So I feel like that's a better thing about Marvel is there's more of a deep question there.
Also,
Well,
you could-
no, I wouldn't say that there is a question. I think Marvel's focus is more on heroes, which is fine. But to say that their villain is their weakest part of their universe.
Yeah.
I mean, but you know,
Also, I think you also have to consider that to some, Iron Man is technically a villain. He is the one that started the Age of Ultron. He's the one that got the Civil War under the way. As much as he's a
but that's not in the movies. That's more in the comics. The
no,
comics
that's in the movies.
Civil War, Captain
yeah,
America.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I mean,
But actually, in terms of what I mean to say is like Iron Man as a villain, like he's much more sympathetic in the movies than he is in the comics. At least you have the. I don't want to get into spoilers, but Iron Man has a much better reason in the movies for doing what he does.
I mean, like the whole thing about him being a villain. There's a difference between being a villain and just being a jerk, and this is just kind of Iron. Like he just makes bad judgments and is kind of a jerk. So like, how would that count him as a villain unless he's actively trying to destroy people's lives?
It's a great question to leave us with. So now we're going to take a break here. We actually found some people who are also fans of Marvel and DC, and we asked them some trivia questions. So let's go take a look.
Where does the Black Panther hail from?
Wakanda. My brother. I know the last one is like law or something. I really forgot. It's a long acronym. I know the S stands for special.
Special hockey
What does Galactus feast on?
planets. Planets.
You're doing really well, Mike. Who is known as the Merc with the Mouth?
Deadpool. Yeah, Deadpool.
What is the name of Captain America's sidekick?
I got Bucky.
Which hero lost his father in an airplane crash?
Hal Jordan.
Yeah, Green Lantern.
In Batman Beyond, what is the name of Bruce's dog?
It's a card. Think about it. A card.
Ace.
What planet is at the center of the universe?
Something.
It's
It's Oa, right?
It's Oa.
Oa!
What space sector is Earth located in?
The Milky Way? Idiot.
2-196.
Okay, so welcome back. Now for our last topic, it is evolution of tone. Angela, what are your thoughts?
I think that the tone is the one thing that the Marvel has done the best out of all of these things we've been talking about, because Marvel picked a tone with Iron Man, and then they've had that consistency throughout all of their different films, from like Thor, Guardians of the Galaxy. Everyone does have its own flavor, but it all has that consistent with the bright colors and the ability to laugh at itself. There's always a time at the movie where you're like, oh, that's funny. But yeah, so I think Marvel has the best there.
Okay, and Batman, your thoughts on evolution of tone?
Well, if you look at the Superman movie, it starts out optimistic, and then as more superhero films are introduced into the genre, it gets more complex, and then you have Tim Burton's Batman film, which introduces a gritty tone not only to the films but into comics as well. And then there's the present now, which has adopted a gritty tone to arguable success.
All right, so now the floor is open for discussion.
Right now, I think that your biggest problem is you're stuck in the past. Because every time you say something, you're talking about the 78 Superman or the Tim Burton Batman. But right now, you're not discussing where you guys are right now, your future, the DCEU, which the tone is messed up.
We could talk about, in the present, he referred to the Arrowverse, which is arguably DC's most successful property in television, which is more of a campy tone. You know, it's not as gritty as the cinematic universe is now. And it's very successful. And then, so if you want to talk about having a consistent tone with regards to Marvel, I would argue that isn't the case. Because if you look at the Netflix Marvel series, which are fantastic, they're gritty and dark and they're violent. They don't reflect, they're not trying to reach out to a whole mainstream audience, and they're not as bright. I wouldn't call Daredevil a bright and sunny series.
But there's still points where you can laugh. Like there's always
in Daredevil?
Yes.
Yeah, they have like little points where it's like, oh,
Right,
that's funny. There's a relief from that dark gritty. I know that the main theme is obviously a very dark thing, but it's just it's not all like watching Batman versus Superman. I just wanted a point where I could
laugh.
Yeah, take a time off from the just intensity of every single moment. There's just that little bit of relief is good.
But we're speaking more in terms of tone right now. So all I'm saying is that I wouldn't, right now, Marvel's TV universe, at least with regards to Netflix, where most of its TV universe currently exists, doesn't reflect the tone of its cinematic universe.
But does it have to, though? Because you could say the same thing about your DCEU and your TV universe.
Yeah, I'm gonna backtrack a bit to the whole subject of tone and like the whole thing with like you can't get a laugh in Batman v Superman. A lot of the scenes of Batman v Superman with Bruce and Alfred were just kind of, well, not only Alfred trying to give Bruce life lessons, it would just be kind of him making fun of him and snarky. Yeah.
All right, so that's all the time we have for today's episode of Roundtable Discussions. Thank you guys for being here and for discussing Marvel versus DC. Thank you guys for tuning in. Leave a comment down below on your opinions, and see you guys next time.